All right, guys, are there any questions over the assignments so far? Any questions over anything we've done so far? What we're doing today is going over the equation of all the points that are equidistant from a given point. Take it off your head. All right, guys. So what we're looking at today is the equations of circles. Now there's two given equations we can use, and it's these two here. So we have x squared plus y squared equals r squared, which is the given equation if the center of the circle is the point 0, 0. Now if the point, or the given point, our center is not 0, 0, we can use our x minus h squared plus y minus k squared is equal to r squared. And h and k will always kind of connect in a similar way. X and h will always go together, y and k will go together as well. So we have this here. And these are kind of the general form, and we can use it to get the equation or get the equation of a circle or get the information from it. So when we look at these first few here, we're going to be finding the equation of a circle. And it's going to be easiest to start with the same equation every time. So we're going to start off with our x minus h squared plus y minus k squared is equal to r squared. So if we can find the values of h, k, and r, we can get the equation of the circle. Now the center of the circle is the point h comma k. And if we know what the radius is, we can find it here. Now they did give us the center of the circle in the graph. The center of the circle is the point -3, 1. The value of h is -3. The value of k is 1. So for the general form, we can plug that in. So we can say x minus -3 squared plus y minus 1. So we can go on and plug in the values of h and k. Brendan, let's get in a desk. Any questions on, guys, any questions on this so far? Now the only thing we need to find is the radius, and the radius is going to be the distance from the center of the circle to a point on the circle. So we have the center, -3, 1, and we do have a point on the circle, so we just need to find the distance between those 2 points. So we can use the distance formula from yesterday. And our distance formula is the square root of x2 minus x1 squared plus y2 minus y1 squared. So we'll take the difference. So here our two x values are -3 and 2. So we'd say -3 minus 2 squared plus our y values are 1 minus -1 squared. Because once we do this calculation, we'll have the radius. And at this point here, we could type this all into the calculator. So we can use the 30xs, figure all that out. We can say second square root. We have -3 minus 2. Parentheses, -3 minus 2, close parentheses squared, plus 1 minus -1 squared. And it tells us that the radius is the square root of 29. And since we found the radius, we can plug it into the formula, square root of 29. We will need to simplify, but are there any questions on this so far? Now we can simplify the equation a little bit here. The negative and negative will make a plus. So we have x plus 3 squared plus y minus 1 squared is equal to the square root of 29 squared, which would be just 29. And that there is the equation of the circle. That's all we have to do. Any questions on this so far? Are you ready for the next one? Yes. So we fit the square root to find the radius, which is the square root of 29. And when we squared it as part of the formula, we got 29, because it's the radius squared. Any other questions on this here? So we'll look at 2a first. You guys can write it underneath it. I'm going to write it to the side so we can still look at the graph and the equation at the same time. So for any of these here, when we're given the graph or given the information, I'll always start with this form. Now looking at 2a, the center is told to us to be the point 0, 0. So we can plug 0 in for h, and we can plug 0 in for k. So h and k are both 0 in this case, so we get this here. Now this will simplify because x minus 0 is just going to be x, and it's squared, plus, guys, focus up here, our y minus 0 is just going to be y, and it is squared. Now the only thing we're missing is the radius. Well, the radius is just the distance from the center of the circle to a point on the circle. So we can use the distance formula with our 0, 0 and 1, 5. So we can say 1 minus 0 squared plus 5 minus 0 squared to get our equation here. And again, at this point here, we could type this into the calculator. So we can say second square root 1 minus 0 squared plus 5 minus 0 squared. And it'll tell us that the radius is the square root of 26. And we can plug that in. And then when we simplify the square root of 26 squared, we get so for 2a, the equation of this circle is x squared plus y squared equals 26. Questions on this here? Any questions on any of this so far? Do we need to see another example of finding the equation of the circle given the graph? Or do we feel pretty comfortable with these here? Okay. We'll move on to the next type. Finding the equation of the circle given the information, and we're going to graph it. Now to find the equation of the circle, again, we're going to start off with the general equation. X minus h squared plus y minus k squared is equal to the radius squared. So this is going to be a good place to start. Now, unlike the last ones, they specifically told us that the center is -2, -1. So we can plug that in. So we'd have x minus -2 plus y minus -1 squared is equal to, well, this time, unlike the other time, they actually gave us the radius. The radius is 9 squared. Now we can simplify this a little bit, our negative and negative. So we'd have x plus 2 squared plus, here negative and negative, y plus 1 squared is equal to 9 squared, and 9 squared is 81. Any questions on how we found the equation of the circle? So we still need to graph this. Now when we graph a circle, the first place we're going to start is the center. Well, the center is -2, -1, because that's what they told us the center was. And a circle is the set of all points a set distance from the center, which is the radius. And they told us the radius is 9. Now for circles, they're actually quite easy to graph because we can go 9 units up, down, left, and right from the center. So we can go 1, 2, 3, 4, 5, 6, 7, 8, 9 and make a point. I can go to the right 9. 1, 2, 3, 4, 5, 6, 7, 8, 9. Make a point. We can also go down 9. 1, 2, 3, 4, 5, 6, 7, 8, 9 and make a point. And we can go to the left 9 and make a point. And then we just need to connect these 4 points together. And we will have the circle. Yep. But again, I'm not going to be counting off because it's not an exact circle. Any questions on this here? All right. We're going to skip that next one, and I want to look at this one here. So we want to look at the next one, so we'll do one more of these here and then move on to the next type. They tell us that the center is 1, 0, and the radius is 4. So we want to start off with our general form, x minus h squared plus y minus k squared is equal to the radius squared. H and k are the x and y value of the center. So we'd have x minus 1 squared plus y minus 0 squared is equal to the radius squared. And in this case, our radius is 4. So we plug the center in, we plug the radius. Now we can simplify this a little bit. The x minus 1 is still going to stay the same. Plus, well, y minus 0 is just y. And we have it squared, so we'd have y squared is equal to 4 squared, and 4 squared is. So there's our equation. Now to graph it, we start with the center. So we look at the point 1, 0, and we make a point. Now we want to go up, down, left, right, a distance of the radius, which is 4. So 1, 2, 3, 4. 1, 2, 3, 4. 1, 2, 3, 4. And 1, 2, 3, 4. And then we connect the 4 together, or at least try to. Yep, nope. One more time. That's better. Any questions on this here? All right, guys. the diameter, guys, we're given the diameter and so we are given the two diameter points of a circle. Now the two things we need to find the equation, because here we're just finding the equation, we need the center and the radius. Because if we know what the center is and we know what the radius is, we can find the equation of a circle. Well, the center of this circle is going to be the exact point in the middle of the two endpoints. So what we can do first is to find the midpoint of our two endpoints. And to find the midpoint, we add the two x values together and divide by 2, add the two y values together and divide by 2, and we'll get the midpoint. So for us here, we would take 7 plus -1 and divide it by 2. And we would get 3. And we would take 6 plus -8 and divide it by 2 to get the y value of the midpoint, which is -1. So the center of this circle is the point 3, -1. Now we still need to find the radius, which is going to be using the distance formula. Now we could use the two endpoints, but if we use the two endpoints, it won't give us the radius, it will give us the diameter, which we would then need to divide by 2. So what's going to be easier to do is to take the center point as one of our 2 points and use one of the endpoints. So which one do we want to use? 7, 6 or -1, -8? We just need to pick one. So let's see. So we can do this here. So we can say second square root of 3 minus -1 squared plus -1 minus -8 squared. And we get the square root of 65. Now, if we chose the other point, 3 minus, our other point was 7, 6. So 3 minus 7 squared plus -1 minus 6 squared, we get, doesn't matter, because again, with a circle, the circle is the set of all points that are the same distance from the center. So since we chose the center and an endpoint, their distances will be the same. Now if we chose the two endpoints and found its distance, it would actually work out to be 2 square root of 65, because the diameter is twice the radius. Now again, so here we're just finding the equation of the circle. We just need to plug our information in. X minus h squared plus y minus k squared is equal to r squared. Well, h in our case is 3. K is -1 and r is the square root of 65. And when we simplify it a little bit, we would get x minus 3 squared plus negative and negative makes a plus. And that's it. Questions on any of this here? Questions on anything we've done so far? So really with this here, we found the midpoint, then used the midpoint and one of the endpoints to find the radius and plugged it all in. Do we need to see another example with the endpoints? That brings us to the last problem. Find the center and the radius. So we won't have to graph it, but we do want to find the center and the radius. So there's two things we want to do first. One is we want to get the constant terms, the numbers without a variable, on one side, and get x and y by itself. So the first thing I can do is add 12 to both sides. So that'll tell us that this is equal to 12. We also want to get the x terms by themselves, or not by themselves, but next to each other. So we'd have x squared minus 8x. So we'll just move those two next to each other, plus we'll leave a little spot. Then we'll have y squared plus 12y plus blank is equal to 12. So when we start this process, again, we're wanting to get it back to the general form. X minus h squared plus y minus k squared is equal to r squared. So what we're really needing to do is rewrite this so that I have two sets of parentheses. Well, the first one has x, second one has y, and it's equal to a number. Because the number inside the parentheses with x will give us the x value of the center. The number inside the parentheses with y will give us the y value of the center. And if we take the square root of what it's equal to, that'll give us the radius. Now to find these two numbers that go in the blanks, we're using something that we've done before. C is equal to b over 2 squared. We're completing the square. Because this x minus h squared is a perfect square trinomial. So c is equal to b over 2 will give us that value. And here, our value of b is -8. Well, -8 divided by 2 is -4. And -4 squared is almost +16. So our perfect square trinomial would be our x squared minus 8x plus 16. But if I add a number to one side of the equation, we have to add it to the questions on this so far? Well, we have to do this again because we also need it for y. Yeah, so c is equal to 12 over 2 squared, 6 squared, which is, so we'd have 36, and we would add 36 here. Now the easy one is this here, 12 plus 16 plus 36 is Now we do need to finish those two parentheses. And again, when we went over this with quadratics with completing the square, so for x, we use this part here. Well, the number inside the parentheses before we square it is what goes inside the parentheses on the other one. So we would have x minus 4. The same is true with y. So since it's +6, we would have +6 inside the parentheses before we square it. So, any questions on how we got to the equation in standard form? Now, our general equation, let's pick, was x minus h squared plus y minus k squared is equal to the radius squared. So it asks for the center, which is our h comma k. So they do match up pretty well because we have x minus 4 in the parentheses. In the general form, we have x minus h. So the value of h is 4. Almost, because 6 would be right, but not quite. It'd be -6. Because when we pull the numbers out of the parentheses, we've got to change the sign. So since it was -4 inside, it comes out as positive. Since it was +6. it comes out as minus 6. Now our radius, so in the equation, 64 is equal to the radius squared. Find the radius, we would square root. So the square root of 64 is? So that's the center and radius. Yes. Any other questions on this here? In that